The higher stress you have, the lower testosterone you have. The more stressed you are, the dumber you are. The more stressed you are, the more pain you're in. The more stressed you are, the more inflamed you are. The more stressed you are, the weaker you are as a man. So it's like the more outraged we're becoming at things that are happening externally, the weaker we're becoming as men.
And so why do you think, like, because this is something that I question too, like you and I can look at it and be like, bro, it's like a pretty simple recipe. Just put one foot in front of the other and start today, and start with your physical body and start on this process of gaining confidence in yourself by exhibiting what you can do and how you can change your world around you and your internal state, right? Like it's an easy conversation for you and I to have, but why do we think that so many men do we believe that like society has done such a good job to rip this out of men that they don't even have any ambition to do it? Because we're seeing this collectively. Like it's not just on a small scale. The United States is it's a real pandemic amongst men.
Yeah. Is the question, are you asking why do you think they're doing it?
Yeah.
Or what's being done?
Oh no, why do you think men are not embracing this desire to get this back, this form of masculinity back? Do you think it's society has done a good job ripping it out? Do you think they've gotten just lazy? Like what do you see that you believe has caused this deterioration?
Oh, that's a big question. And it's a beautiful question too, because there's so many aspects of it. I would start with taking the father out of the home. Taking the father out of the home because like if the father's not in the home, then you can't raise a man, period. Yeah. Right? Like a mother can't raise a man. They can raise a boy, but they can't make him transform into a man. Yeah. Because in order to do that, they have to sell their soul to masculinity and like give up the idea of being feminine themselves. So it goes both ways. Like women have been emasculated and men have been feminized. So that's one aspect of it if we stay in the internal environment. Well, the second aspect of it is I believe in a lot of ways it's a psyop, like a psychological operation by the powers that be, whoever they be, to call like people can look at me, they can look at you and they could be like, that person is toxically masculine. We're just like, what, but it's words, right? Mm-hmm. Like the idea of a conspiracy theory is in and of itself a psychological operation to call anything that you don't believe in a conspiracy theory. Yeah. I mean, here's another one, right? We're at 72% overweight and obesity rates in the country. Jesus. Good luck being masculine when you can't even see your dick. Yeah. It's just like, think about this, like polyester clothing, right? Polyester clothing is made by, is made from plastic. Plastic is made from oil. Mm-hmm. Oil. Most of our pharmaceuticals are made from oil. Like they are like basically the petroleum. Yep. Yeah. So who owns all? It's like the DuPont family owns all of that, right? So it's like
Rockefeller.
If all of those, basically, yeah, like the families that run the world own all of this, right? So it's like because if we really like expand the question, because like I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm gonna bring it full circle where it's just like, if you were to realize that you are in prison and you are a slave, that you were born into slavery, and you really realize it, and you stand for what that flag behind you stands for, which is freedom and the idea of the pursuit of happiness. Right? So it's like, if you stand for those things and you realize you stand for those things, now you're kind of like your mind starts to become free, right? Like you're starting to break the matrix. But in order to escape the matrix, you have to stand up against something. Mm-hmm. But if your testosterone, if your endocrine system is shot, if your testosterone is shot, if your sperm is shot, if your physical body is shot, if you have no father pushing you forward, all revolutions have always been done by young men. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have any young men, you have no revolutions. If you have no revolutions, no change happens. So it's by design, by somebody that's playing the long game.
Mm-hmm.
because we've been taught to play the short game. We have the attention span as humans. I don't want to bunch myself or you into that, but I mean, humans have been trained. Modernity has trained humans to have the attention span less than a goldfish, which is, I believe, 9 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're playing the short game all day and it's clicks, it's likes, it's all of this shit that we've been trained and manipulated to pay attention to, you will never think about these bigger ideas that it's just like, wait a second, if I was born into slavery, well, how did slaves get out of slavery, right? Like those are some things that they needed to ask themselves questions of, where it's just like, slaves weren't fed good food because they would get strong. Slaves weren't allowed to exercise because they would get strong. Slaves, so on and so forth. And look at the world today.
Yeah. No, this is a great.
Did that bring it full circle?
100%. Yeah, you hit some of the main things I feel I agree with that are, that idea behind women raising children, from single moms to lesbian parents. You're also taking, I love this, because you're taking the woman out of her natural state, which is to defer to the femininity in her. Like, that is her natural residing state. When as shit hits the fan, she wants to be in her feminine. Her body, her system resorts to the feminine, and men resort to the masculine. And that was one of the powerful things. I mean, the whole thing was powerful, but I love that you identified that. And then to even pair on to your testosterone and how, like, the body is affecting our presentation of masculinity, our desire to fight against, the will of the media and these conglomerates that are trying to control society. The will to fight against them is being deteriorated because, you're right, we are losing testosterone. We're losing that thing in masculinity that has made us respected, right? To be feared, but feared with respect, right? And that's what I think we've lost. And you and I have a good friend, Jay Campbell. He's been on the show, and he's talked about how, I think it was now the bottom range of testosterone starts at 250. And I think it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, the bottom range started at 450. So why have they been lowering the medical appropriate range for testosterone within men, right? And to your point, you look at this effeminized society, women are asking, where are all the real men? Like, where are the men that we respect and value and can hold the feminine? Because we're losing that.
100%. Of 100, and it comes from everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If think about the things that disrupt your endocrine system and your hormonal system, it's going to be stressors.
Yeah.
And what are stressors? Well, for the first and foremost, like, I've seen over 4,000 people in the last few years, and I've been able to analyze, like, their nervous system based on their breath work and their lifestyle. And like, from world-class athletes to special forces operators to all types of, like, entrepreneurs, almost nobody has a perfect breathing style.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that most of them are in a sympathetic state most of the time, which means that they're in fight, flight, freeze. And here's the fourth one that nobody talks about, is cravings. Most people are constantly giving in to certain cravings. You mentioned the word willpower. There is none. So their breathing is off. They're not moving. They're eating terrible foods. I mean, they literally have genetically modified things everywhere now. Like, everything has either some sort of soy, corn, bugs now they're putting in food. I mean, and, like, people are complaining about bugs, but, like, dude, corn and soy is just as bad, if not worse, than putting bugs in your system. Here's another one that I mentioned that I didn't circle back to: polyester clothing.
Oh, yeah.
Your clothing, they found there's tons of studies that show that if you're not wearing, like, organic cotton, linen, wool, natural materials that aren't that don't have chemicals in them, in the long game, you will have no sperm.
Wow. I believe it.
Bro, think about that.
I believe that.
Like, that's crazy, because, like, what we put on our skin
Yeah.
is even more important than what we put in our mouth. And people don't realize that because the food that we put in our mouth goes through a filtration system in our body. But what we put on the skin goes straight into the bloodstream.
Yep. Yeah. Our skin's the largest organ of our body and it absorbs everything. So it's, yeah, you got to be very careful. That, that's terrifying. And that makes a lot of sense, but that's also terrifying that we're seeing this. And so you talked about something earlier I wanted to also hit on. You alluded to the dudes chopping off their dicks. And I think, obviously, like, this fucking bullshit is getting so much notoriety in the media today. And, Joe Rogan's talked about it and numerous other people have talked about it, is that like when the fall of an empire happens, the society gets consumed with gender ideology. And in today's world, like, how are you seeing this, or how do you believe this is also affecting men?
It's affecting men in a lot of ways, but it's affecting them more than it needs to. Because the reality is, if you want to chop off your dick, if you want to take hormones, if you want to change your sex, fair play, go for it. I think that everybody should have the freedom to do whatever it is that they want to do. The problem with that statement is that most people don't have the freedom to do what they want to do because it's a massive marketing campaign that's going and hitting from all angles. Trans tech, that's what that industry is called. Trans technology is an industry that's over, the last time I checked, it was over $200 billion in market cap.
Wow.
Because each person that transitions, I believe it's like 250,000. And that's not counting all of the medication and all of the services, psychological services, physical services, and all that they're going to need later. So of course, it's a huge business. And it's only been a few years in the bigger boom of things. So it's like, it's the biggest business we've ever seen, not counting human trafficking. I think, right? From what I'm seeing with the numbers, because like, I just look at numbers and their market cap is over 200 billion, which is like, dude, it took Apple, it took Disney, it took like Tesla, so many years to get to that point where their market cap is in that many billions. So it's like, we're talking a massive business. So I believe it's affecting men. First of all, a lot of men, I would say a lot of men in the conservative or libertarian space get really like worked up about it. And here's the deal. The higher stress you have, the lower testosterone you have. So it's like, here's another thing that's being played on us that we're not seeing in like the bigger picture. The more stressed you are, the dumber you are. The more stressed you are, the more pain you're in. The more stressed you are, the more inflamed you are. The more stressed you are, the weaker you are as a man. So it's like, the more outraged we're becoming at things that are happening externally, the weaker we're becoming as men. That's not to say that we shouldn't pay attention to these things, but we should take the appropriate necessary actions to protect ourselves and our families from external influences of all sorts, including the right, the left, the middle, everybody. Like, families need to have their values and they need to be able to walk in those values, led by the men in the families.
Yeah. And I think that right there is a very important thing. And I want to get back to that stress thing too, but I want to actually talk about this real quick, because that's very important too. If the men in the family are easily persuaded and manipulated, the boys in the family will follow suit. And if the men cannot guide them appropriately and allow them to be manipulated, because you hit the nail on the head when you said that, anybody has the right to do what they want to themselves, right? And of their own free will. But majority of people don't realize they don't have free will because they're being manipulated constantly every second of the day when they grab their phone or flip on the TV or listen to a radio station or any of this shit. There's constant psychological manipulation happening on a regular basis. And that was kind of why I was asking that question, because I see men feeling like they're even questioning their own sexuality, I think, in a lot of ways collectively, because they're having psychological operations done on them all the time. They're like, what if everybody's gay? Am I gay? Am I should I be a woman? You know, like, and you have them asking these fucking weird questions to themselves they would never ask if they weren't having this shit just put in their fucking earlobes all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, like I am I'm into freedom, bro. Like I grew up in Brooklyn. I mean, and I went to an alternative high school in New York. It was in the Village in New York, and the Village is one of the gayest places in America, maybe even the world. The Village in New York and San Francisco in California are the two probably gayest places, or at least they used to be, right? So I was exposed to a lot of like ultra liberal stuff. Like I didn't even know that there was even another like a Republican perspective, or like there's just like this is New York, this is what people do in New York, right? Like it was very influenced by like fashion. It was very influenced by gay culture.
Yeah.
So like, bro, if you want to suck a dick, if you want to like be a lesbian, if you want to be gay, like go for it. Sure. Like I have no less respect or love for you as a human being. Right. Like I know very incredible gay people that have been gay forever without the media. And I know very incredible straight people. And I know very shitty gay people. And I know very shitty straight people. Yeah. My only thing is like, just stay away from children. Let them figure it out on their own. Yeah. As they get older, like they get to figure out their own stuff. And also like, you know, yeah, there's a lot of media influence, but like if you're paying attention to media, you have a bigger problem than figuring out like if you want to suck a dick or not. Like your bigger problem is that you're not aware in any way, shape, or form that the idea of media, movies, music, but everything pop culture is wrong. Mm-hmm. So that's first of all. Second of all, it's literally called programming. Yeah. Like, and you're not even choosing the program. Yeah. So it's like, what do you expect? Like they're dripping it into your mind using psychological programs. And like what they do is NLP. I don't know if you're familiar with neuro-linguistic programming, but it's like NLP with $1 billion budget.